Okay, so this video is going to be about timelines. Very basic, what's on a timeline, what we call a year, if it's before 0 or after 0, and how we decide, how we figure out how many years are between two events when it's either before 0, after 0, or both. Okay, to start off with, this is a very simple timeline. Especially in ancient civilization or Eastern Hemisphere class, we will be looking at both before and after 0. Everything before 0 is BCE, or before Common Era. And everything after C is Common Era. 0 is our most important benchmark number. It tells us exactly when it changes from BCE to CE. Now, timelines have both lines like this or arrows like this. If you see a timeline with straight bars up and down, that means there is nothing beyond that. So this timeline has bars like this. It says nothing is over here. This time, whatever that may be, is the first time. As it is, would be over there, except that would be the last time. If the timeline did have arrows on the end, that means the timeline is only a snippet of what actually is on the timeline. So if this was the actual timeline and we had the arrows, that means there is more timeline over here. The author just didn't put it on the timeline. Same with over here. The events go on and on. So if we had, let's just say, a 50 here, 50 CE, that would be a benchmark. It would show the viewer a quick representation of where exactly 50 is, as if 50 was over here BCE. All right. How many years are between? This is very similar to an integer line. We have our 0, and think of the timeline as positives and negatives, except we do not have negative times. Instead of negative times, we have negative years, we have BCE, before Common Era. Okay. So if we're talking about two years in the CE, let's just for example, we're talking about 50 CE, 50 before Common Era, and 100 CE. And we want to know exactly how many years are between those. We just simply subtract 50 from 100, and we see that there's 50 years between. Same thing happens if we're looking at 2 BCE, before Common Era years. If we're looking at 100 BCE and 50 BCE, and we try to figure out how many years are there, we just subtract 50 from 100. Now, if we're looking at 2 years that are on both sides of 0, if we're looking at 50 BCE and 100 CE, they're both on separate sides of 0. They're not on the same side. To see how many years are between 50 BCE and 100 CE, we have to add. So, looking at a number line, an integer line, we have to see how many units, how many years it is on this side of 0, 50. Add that to how many units or years the second number is from 0. So 100 years from 0 and 50 years, showing that it is 150 years between the two. Alright, so that is very simply what timelines are. If you have any questions, please ask. See you in class.